if you think about all achievements that we're going to have around innovation, we need to break through. We need to collaborate. You need clearly to work together in order to make the next couple of days powerful for you. You probably came here to some extent because you assumed that you'd be able to develop some relationships that could be beneficial to you, not just peppered by a bunch of conversations. What Peter and I were talking about originally was the fact that the power in this room ain't up here. It's out there. And if we're going to do what we need to do for the next 2 days with and among all of you, you have to unleash the power out here. And that's only going to become with social permission to take risk. I'm serious. We found it statistically in all of the organizations that we've studied. In our research, our organization is a research firm, a training company, and a consultancy. But in the research arm, we find that you can't have innovation without social risk. And social risk only occurs if you have the basis of a relationship underneath to be able to say things out of the box. In fact, I would clearly, he's coming to take me away. I took my jacket, okay, good. The world, I believe, and I'm just going to put this out there, I believe to some extent the world is suffering from the lack of this candor, this accountability, and these social connections. There are large organizations that knew damn well what direction we were heading, where people sat in executive committee meetings with instincts that said these instruments, these financial instruments, aren't necessarily something that could sustain themselves. They're not necessarily the right decision. And they said nothing. And I know this because I've interviewed them. And they said nothing because they were fearful of the political bullseye that would be on their back from their peers if they had that voice. And other organizations did say something. And other individuals did say something. And as a result, because of that candor, because of that social bonding, they actually had the permission to actually forego some of the bad decisions other people did, let alone freeing people for collaboration and innovation. That's what we need in here. And I was fearful of this room and what the atmosphere would do. So we've got to make sure that the people component of this room gets unleashed, just as you do in your own executive teams, in your own sales forces, in your own organizations. The environment counts. When you have somebody in your organization, a boss that cares about your success, you bound out of bed, you work harder, your productivity is higher. In fact, 30 times higher levels of employee engagements. Your turnover rates are lower. We need those kind of social bonds, and we need to start them right in here with you in this organization, in this tentative organization for the next 2 days. So when I wrote my first book, Never Eat Alone, a lot of it was helping people like me and others feel and navigate how do you build networks when sometimes it's challenging and you're insecure and it's difficult. You know, how do you help your sales force sell at the, quote, C level when they don't think they deserve to be in the room? And you start to realize that it really all starts with you and your ability to let your guard down, and that's courageous and that's not weak. And what I want you to realize is you need to be courageous in here if we're going to make a difference in the world and in society. You got to let your guards down enough to be honest and true about what's really going on in your organizations and your fear of not being able to implement these kind of things and all the kind of stuff that you might not necessarily share. You need to share in here. Real innovation occurs among teams that care enough about each other, know who they are, care enough about each other to see their flaws and their faults and still cut right through them, and care enough to hear and respect you even though you're flawed. My only parting words are very simple. What you just tapped into in 2 sequential introductions is what in your human DNA, anthropologically, we know you long to be. You long to be connected. We all, 70,000 years ago, came from a few tribes, and if we weren't in one of those tribes, we got eaten by something. So what you need to realize is that we now need to spread what we define as a tribe, the simple little us, which very often these days is us versus them. We've defined our tribes way too narrowly, just around us as individuals. You've got to start spreading that tribe to be everybody in this room and people beyond that this room is going to be able to help. And you need to be able to be within that tribe in a way that you practice 2 simple principles throughout this event. Find people that you can care for. Truly. Look at them. Have them tell you their story. Find a way to care. That's your choice, not theirs. It's not beholden upon them. It's beholden upon you. There's not a single person in this room not worthy of the care. And number 2, ask if there's anybody here you can help. At every single juncture, at every single cocktail event, at every single coffee, just walk up to somebody and say, Don, how can I help you? Nobody in this room shouldn't be courageous enough to walk into anybody in any conversation and say, how can I help?